Hello everyone, it is Briximus Prime, back at it again for another Transformers action figure video, and today we are reviewing the Universal Monsters Frankentron.
Anyway, getting into the figure itself, we're just going to start off with that packaging there, which, by the way, I love this Universal Monsters artwork they got right here of the Frankentron right there strapped to the table. The lightning says Frankenstein, Universal Monsters, Takara says Frankentron, got the crossover logo, Transformers. Here on the top, you got Transformers. And, of course, you got this right here, this all right there. Authentic Transformers! Ooh. And one other cool feature about this figure is you can slide open this, just like an old vintage VHS tape, and the figure resides right in there, and just has some extra details going on right there. Always some fun packaging with these guys.
Or should I say frightening packaging? Ooh.
Okay, I'll stop now. Frankentron here just comes with two accessories. First off, he's got this little electric prod piece that's, infamous for being one of the set props inside the Frankenstein film. And again, it's just got this little bit of sand green. It's cast in this nice plastic with some silver paint, so it doesn't look too shabby. It's covered in a bunch of 5mm ports, so I can see a lot of people getting creative with this. And on top of that, he also comes with this nice purple blast effect that's made out of a more pliable material, and I love this purple lightning bit. Again, it's also evocative of this piece right here where you plug it in and it looks like it's conducting some electricity or it's launching some electricity out. I've seen lots of people use these accessories in multiple different ways on this figure, but overall, I, personally just like sticking it on his arm, kind of like a Megatron-style fusion cannon sort of thing, but overall, it's just a lot of fun messing around with this thing with this particular figure. And here's now taking a look at Frankentron's head sculpt. This is already based off of one of my favorite molds from the War for Cybertron trilogy line, the Siege Impactor mold. And so I'm really pleased with how they also changed up the mold to make it seem so different from that original figure. And this head sculpt is definitely a perfect example because this head sculpt definitely invokes that original Frankenstein's monster design, while also remaining very mechanical and, not looking super organic. And I also like that shade of green that they used as well. And the same sculpting and care went into the chest as well. I like how he literally looks like he's fused and, welded together of parts of, multiple Transformers that have been kind of, fused together by Shockwave or something, like a mad scientist. And there's these tiny bits of paint throughout it that definitely give it some very nice highlights as well. And there's even some new molded, sculpted parts scattered throughout to further make this even more different than the Siege Impactor figure. Sadly, though, he does still have the gaps here in the side, but I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of accurate to the character because he's soulless and he's all empty inside. And overall, I just like the deco that they've got going on throughout this figure with those bit of highlights of purple. Though I do find it interesting that the last monster figure we got didn't really have any faction insignias, and we couldn't really quite tell whether this guy was a Decepticon or not, where now I think it's a little bit more obvious what side this guy's on. We literally went from one guy who has no faction logos to a guy who has half his body covered in them. Going over posability, this guy's got a swivel right up there on the head. If you untab this transformation hinge and hinge this down, you can have him with some looking up action with the head. His shoulders can rotate a full 360. They can move in and out on a single hinge, and due to transformation, he gets an extra hinge that allows him to move up even farther. He's also got a bicep swivel, 90 degrees of bend at the elbow. I also love that they retooled the hands here, so now he's got these hands that are constantly on a little zombie walk, kind of thriller kind of looking position. And again, the only movement they've got is that little transformation hinge that allows him to swivel side to side like so. He's also got a diaphragm swivel right up there. And then also due to transformation, if you unclip this hinge right here, he gets a nice ab crunch, and this definitely allows for him to get some of those creepy zombie hunched over positions. His hips can rotate forward that far, they can rotate back that far, they can move outward that far. He does have a knee swivel right there. He bends just about 90 degrees right there at the knee, and then his ankles can hinge out. That doesn't count. But his ankles do hinge in that little bit for a bit of ankle pivot, and then the toes do hinge up and down. So that is pretty good articulation on this guy. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, this cannon can also hinge up and down to accommodate for the shoulder positioning on that side as well. Now, kind of getting into the comparisons a little bit, I wanted to show him off with Impactor really fast. As you can see, the chest here is completely remolded, the heads are completely different, and obviously the color scheme here also shows you just how completely different these guys are. And then also just demonstrating on how different those hands are as well. You can see how those hands have also been remolded as well. And again, just overall, I love this kind of retooling on figures because it really makes it feel like you're buying two entirely separate toys, even though they're basically the same thing. But again, I just love the amount of care and detail they went to and what lengths they were willing to go with the retooling on this guy. But you could say I found it quite shocking. Moving on with the comparisons here, he is compared next to Ectotron. And then here he is compared next to the last Universal Monsters crossover figure we got, the Deluxe Class Draculus. And yeah, be sure to go and check out the reviews on all those previous figures that I mentioned. Now let's get into Frankentron's quick and easy transformation. And now getting into Frankentron's vehicle form. Obviously, this isn't actually something that we've seen in the film, but I mean, it is kind of cool that we're able to see the reworking and just the imagination of the designers and how they reshaped, Impactor's tank mode and now turns into this, like, electro-prod, like, tank that, like, shoots lightning bolts. I mean, that's pretty cool, or should I say, pretty shocking? I used that joke already. And overall, again, I just love the molded and sculpted details, like on the treads, these little spikes here on the front. Again, this also adds a lot of detail with those bits of paint, the giant Decepticon logos, and just overall, just love a lot of the panel lines and just the Frankenstein parts we got in here. And just, again, overall, I just love the way how this came out. It's just a clever reworking of, an already existing tank form. But, I mean, if you really use your imagination, if you kind of hinge it upward like this, you could say this is he now transforms into the machine that helped create Frankenstein's monster. It's a bit of a stretch, but, I mean, it's something. And again, just like the tank before it with Impactor, it does have rolling wheels. You can also rotate the tank turret right there. This part hinges up and down for adjustability, and this part also hinges up and down as well. So again, there's all kinds of different ways you can mess around with this vehicle mode. And now just quickly going through the alt mode comparisons. Here he is next to Impactor's original tank mode. Here he is compared next to Ectotron. And yes, this is the other version of Ectotron, the main release. I do own two different versions of this figure. I'm financially responsible. I don't know what you guys are talking about. And then here he is next to Draculus in his, bat form. So, anyway, that is it for the comparisons. And that is basically it for my review on the crossover, Frankentron figure. And overall, I really do like it. I've always been a huge fan of the old Universal Monster films, and Frankenstein has definitely been one of my favorites of those old films, and so, and again, this is based on one of my favorite Siege molds, and it's almost like this happens to appeal to me very much. It's almost like it was almost catered to me, like it's so specific, but again, that's obviously me exaggerating, but it's gotta be one of my favorite crossover figures ever, just because how much it appeals to me. I also love Ectotron and the Draculus and some of the other ones that they've done that have gotten really creative, but I don't know what it is. This one just has a little bit more charm than some of those other ones, just because
It's also based on a really good mold. It's also got so much really awesome looking retooling, and I just love the film it comes from, and just overall, such a great set, especially with the box that it comes in, and just the presentation is also really well done.
I think the alt mode is pretty good for what they had. Like, I think because of the retooling, it allowed them to get a little bit creative with the alt mode, but obviously the alt mode does feel like a little bit of an afterthought. But again, this thing's just kind of dumb in the first place, so it's just all fun and games from here. Like, I don't really take it too seriously. I just love the way how it looks, and it's just really intimidating for being something that's kind of dumb.
And now our time here draws to a close as I give the final verdict for this figure. And I, Briximus Prime, give this figure a very solid 8 out of 10. If you enjoyed this spooky themed review, be sure to leave a like on the video, comment down below what you guys think, and subscribe to the channel for more Transformers and action figure videos. And I will catch you all next time, alive or dead.
I'll see you guys next time.